Hi, everyone. Welcome to our channel. Captain World. Is the United States still a superpower? Is it the most powerful military force globally? In the recent hours, the House of Representatives approved an $886 billion defense bill, and it's essential to note that this figure doesn't encompass the undisclosed hundreds of billions of dollars. The bill is now headed to President Biden's desk for signing, ostensibly aiming to enhance American security and reinforce the nation's superpower status. However, it appears to have had the opposite effect given the situation at our southern border, resembling a constant influx of tens of thousands of people daily, accompanied by deteriorating bridges and tent cities across the country. Concurrently, there's a real-time devaluation of the United States, or a point underscored by Vladimir Putin in a recent major press conference where he highlighted the decline from 87 to 20 in dollarization for all transactions in Russia. Is the United States still a superpower? Let's take a moment for reflection. As we approach the end of the year, Douglas Macgregor urges us to look back at the last 2.5 years of the Biden administration and even beyond, focusing on the period since Biden assumed office. A crucial question arises regarding the current strength and influence of the United States both internally within our society and externally on the global stage. Macgregor raises concerns about our trajectory and where we're headed as a nation. The assessment is not optimistic. He suggests that we are in a rapid decline as a major power. Without drawing an analogy to the Wizard of Oz, Macgregor paints a picture of a government akin to the scene with the little man manipulating lights and images behind the curtain. It's only when the little dog pulls back the curtain that people realize there's nothing substantial behind the facade. In the latest insights, Douglas Macgregor points out that while we might not be at the tipping point yet, we're approaching it. He emphasizes that a significant portion of Americans remains oblivious to both domestic and international affairs. Macgregor notes that some are waking up to issues like rising crime, human trafficking, and the drug crisis due to open borders, but a concerning number are still engrossed in entertainment rather than addressing critical problems. Throwing attention to the ongoing conflict in Ukraine, Macgregor highlights the failure of governmental predictions, advice, and support to the Ukrainians, indicating a stark disparity between expectations and reality. Douglas Macgregor underscores the perceived failure of America on the global stage, asserting that over 1 billion people worldwide see the country as weak and lacking substance. He draws a sharp contrast between the leadership styles of President Putin, emphasizing Putin's ability to deliver extensive speeches and answer questions without notes, showcasing his command of information and material. Macgregor applauded Putin's intelligence and commitment to Russia's best interests while criticizing the U.S. provocations. He also highlights the significant human toll in Ukraine, with over 500,000 Ukrainian soldiers dead and millions of civilians displaced. According to Douglas Macgregor, the Ukrainian nation is essentially lifeless, comatose, and lacks any meaningful life support. He emphasizes that the real beneficiaries are the corrupt leaders of the country who are set to receive another injection of American cash, which they are likely to divert to offshore bank accounts. Macgregor questions the impact of such funds on the ordinary citizens suffering on the battlefield. He paints a grim picture of the dire situation, describing wounded Ukrainian soldiers resorting to bribes for ambulance transport to receive proper medical attention, highlighting the absence of a functional military infrastructure. In his view, the war in Ukraine has reached its conclusion. Douglas Macgregor contends that the Russian advance towards the West is intentional, slow, and disproving the false narrative that Putin aims to conquer Eastern Europe. He notes that the deception about Putin's intentions is unraveling, especially in countries like Germany, Austria, and France. Macgregor highlights the growing awareness among populations who are questioning the economic destruction and job loss coupled with the influx of unwanted migrants. According to him, governments have failed to consult with the people, and citizens are rejecting the narrative that resisting mass migration equates to being labeled a Nazi. Instead, they argue it's about preserving their national identity and survival. Douglas Macgregor observes a convergence of issues both internationally and domestically. He points out that within the United States, citizens are quietly questioning the continued financial support for Ukraine, considering the apparent conclusion of the war. Macgregor emphasizes the strength and power of the Russian military, now in pristine condition, contrasting it with the challenges the U.S. faces in recruiting and maintaining its armed forces. He expresses concern about the reliance on recruiting foreigners in a legal preference, suggesting a departure from the historical dependence on American men for defense. Macgregor also notes the puzzling preference, as indicated by Senator Durbin, for entrusting foreign constabulary rather than relying on American citizens for the nation's defense. Douglas Macgregor points out the worsening conditions faced by the average American family amid rising criminality and a staggering 35% increase in food prices within the past 18 months. He underscores the disconnect between the reality experienced by ordinary Americans and the insulated world of Washington. Macgregor draws attention to the 7th of October attack, which shocked and appalled not only people globally, but also elites in the Muslim world, including those in the Arab Peninsula, Egypt, Turkey, and Iran. Instead of addressing the specific event of the 7th of October and dealing with its aftermath, it has now been used as justification for the expulsion and of 2.2 million people from Gaza. The years has seen as part of an agenda to create a greater Israel encompassing the West Bank and Gaza, which has always been on the agenda, but not yet realized. The rest of the world is now more shocked and appalled by the events in Gaza than the incident on the 7th of October. While the United States expresses solidarity with Israel, people globally are witnessing the distressing images and questioning how it serves the Israeli cause and aligns with U.S. interests. These realities are starting to register, but not to an extent that significantly impacts the United States. Unfortunately, the Capitol Hill remains largely immune to accountability, engaged in accepting funds from lobbyists and major contributors in the donor-occupied territory of Washington. They go home and rest comfortably. That's the current state. Your point is crucial. Looking back historically, even in the early 20th century, before World War, i.e. the American public consistently opposed military interventions abroad. The sentiment never strongly favored World War II, and it won quickly when we suffered 318,000 casualties in just 110 days, prompting people to question, so why are we involved? What's the purpose? When Americans found out that our presence was primarily to bail out British and French banks and support British and French imperial interests, millions became deeply disgusted and permanently distanced. It required the Pearl Harbor disaster, which we now know was actively influenced by FEDER, to shake us out of this so-called isolationist mindset. That isolationist sentiment purrs today because people are asking, what about our issues here? It's undeniable that polling data aligns with your observations. However, it's crucial to remember that donors win elections, not voters. Let's dissect his claims about Ukraine. President Zelensky is increasingly resembling Mussolini, facing widespread hatred within Ukraine. Even his generals and officers, tasked with holding together the remnants of the Ukrainian army, that the entire system is engulfed in corruption, including officers in the field, embezzling the pay meant for soldiers who have long perished on the battlefield. The realization is setting in that the Russian advance is relentless, and their superiority in strength, equipment, leadership, and training is undeniable. The officers are acknowledging the need to accept the grim reality and find an exit strategy. Therefore, his statements about Russia are outright falsehoods. Contrary to his claims, Russia's economy is thriving with a significant portion of its transactions, as mentioned earlier in our conversation, conducted in dollars. Russia is a member of BRICS and is poised to assume the presidency of BRICS next year. These nations are actively seeking to distance themselves from our financial system, gravitating towards gold-backed currencies. A move we cannot execute without risking imminent default. It's crucial to recognize that Putin is not responsible for our financial challenges. We've inflicted these wounds upon ourselves. Globally, the United States is viewed as an international bully, pressuring nations into adopting policies and actions they wouldn't otherwise choose. Our tactics rest on leveraging the financial system, including the SWIFT operation and military power. While